Hi there, Greg. Good morning and happy Cinco de Mayo. I have some fun activities for you that we'll go through when we look at your daily assignments right now. So give me 1 second to share the screen and we can get started looking through your assignments for the day before we read the BFG together. So let me get that going. All right. I wanted to start your Tuesday morning with a fun pop of color with this Cinco de Mayo image. So we have our normal Zoom meeting at 10 o'clock this morning. And now following your Zoom meeting, following our office hours, I'm gonna hold an additional math review session for anyone that really needs additional guidance or support with the math. The math is a little bit challenging, it's a little bit tricky, and you have a quiz today, a short quiz. So if you need help, please stick around after the meeting and then we will go over examples, problems, and I'll answer as many of your questions as I can. So hopefully you feel a little bit more confident with the material. Okay. Your digital journal, it's an on day for your digital journal. So you're completing slide 14, all about my house. So you can go ahead and read my example. It's kind of funny with my situation in my home right now. You're taking a break in grammar. Remember, we're alternating back and forth with that. Reading, you are going to be reading chapter 2 in Sideways Stories from Wayside School. And like I said, some of you, actually for everyone, every good reader, it's a really good idea to kind of take notes as you're reading, or even sometimes to read the comprehension questions before you even start reading so that you know what to look out for, because it's really hard to keep going back in the chapter looking for that direct evidence. So the more notes you take, the more prepared you'll be to answer the questions, the easier it will be to get that done. So today for writing, you are going to do your first draft on the graphic organizer on the next page following your brainstorm page for the best pen. So I have gone through all of that with you in your model video. So it's very important to go ahead and watch that so you can see the structure that I want and you can see an example that I have for you, okay? So I know that you're going to be responsible. Hold yourself accountable to go watch that video. Here's your math quiz for today. So once again, I would stick around if you need some support with math. It's short, but it does go over the concepts that we've been working on together, okay? Your social studies, I don't have it right here on the screen right now, but what you're gonna be doing is going through the next slide, reading through it, and then completing the slide with the questions that it asks, okay? And then here's your optional extension activities for Cinco de Mayo. I have an article for you, a little quick video, and I have a bunch of activities that you can participate in, and I'd love for you to share them on Seesaw or send me an email if you do any of them and explore it, okay? Mr. Kirby's website and then your arts. So that is your day. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and we are going to go ahead and read the BFG. So we left off with him talking about how big his ears are and that he can hear everything. And so now we're going to read about the snozcumbers, what he eats, but he does not like it very much. But I mean, I'd rather him eat these than people, right? So let's go ahead and get started. But if you don't eat people like all the others, Sophie said, then what do you live on? That is a squelching tricky problem around here, the BFG answered. In this swashbuckling giant country, Happy eats like pineapples and pigwinkles is simply not growing. Nothing is growing except for one extremely icky poo vegetable. It is called the snozcumber. The snozcumber, cried Sophie. There's no such thing. The BFG looked at Sophie and smiled, showed about 20 of his square white teeth. Yesterday, he said, we was not believing in giants, was we? Today, we is not believing in snozcumbers. Just because we happen to have actually seen something with our own two little winkles, we think it is not existing. What about, for instance, the great squizzly Scotch hopper? I beg your pardon, Sophie said. And the humble crimp. What's that? Sophie said. And the wrapped rascal. The what? Sophie said. And the crunkscottle. Are they animals? Sophie asked. They is common animals, said the BFG contemptuously. I is not a very know-all giant myself, but it seems to me that you is absolutely know-nothing human being. Your brain is full of rotten wool. You mean cotton wool, Sophie said. What I mean and what I say is two different things, the BFG announced rather grandly. I will not show you a snozcumber. The BFG flung open a massive cupboard and took out the weirdest looking thing Sophie had ever seen. It was about half as long again as an ordinary man, but was much thicker. It was as thick around its girth as a perambulator. It was black with white stripes along its length, and it was covered all over with coarse novels. So this picture, this illustration is in black and white, but you need to put the description that the author used into that illustration so you can imagine the colors, visualize what it looks like in color. Here is the repulsant snozzcumber, cried the BFG, waving it about. I squoggle it, I despise it, I desponge it. But because I was refusing to gobble up human beings like other giants, I must spend my life guzzling up icky poo snozzcumbers instead. If I don't, I will be nothing but skin and groans. You know you mean skin and bones, Sophie said. I know it is bones, the BFG said, but please understand that I cannot be helping it, as sometimes I'm saying things that are a little squiggly. I is trying my very best all the time. The big friendly giant looked suddenly so forlorn that Sophie got quite upset. I'm sorry, she said, I didn't mean to be rude. There never was any schools to teach me talking in giant country, the BFG said sadly. But couldn't your mother have taught you, Sophie asked. My mother, cried the BFG. Giants don't have mothers. Surely you was knowing that. I did not know that, Sophie said. Whoever heard of a woman giant, shouted the BFG, waving the snozzcumber around his head like a lasso. There never was a woman giant, and there never will be one. Giant is always men. Sophie felt herself getting a little muddled. In that case, how were you born? Giants isn't born, the BFG answered. Giants appears, and that's all there is to it. They simply appears the same way the sun and stars. And when did you appear? Sophie asked. Now how on earth could I be knowing a thing like that? Said the BFG. It was so long ago I couldn't count. You mean you don't even know how old you are? No giant is knowing that, the BFG said. All I is knowing about myself is that I am very old, very, very old and crumply, perhaps as old as the earth. What happens when a giant dies? Sophie asked. Giants is never dying, the BFG answered. Sometimes, and quite suddenly, a giant's disappearing, and nobody is ever knowing where he goes to. But mostly us giants is simply going on and on like a whimsy time twiddler. The BFG was still holding the awesome snozzcumber in his right hand, and now he put one end into his mouth and bit off a huge hunk of it. He started crunching it up, and the noise he was making was like the crunching of lumps of ice. It's filthy, he spluttered, speaking with his mouth full and spraying large pieces of snozzcumber like bullets in Sophie's direction. Sophie hopped around on the tabletop, ducking out of the way. It's disgusterous, the BFG gurgled. It's sickable, it's rotsome, it's maggot-wise. Try it yourself, this balsam snozzcumber. No, thank you, Sophie said, backing away. It's how you're going to be guzzling around here from now on, so you might as well get used to it, said the BFG. Go on, you snipsy little winkle, have a go. Sophie took a small nibble. Oh, she spluttered. Oh, no, oh, gosh, oh, help. And she spat it out quickly. It tastes of frog skin, she gasped, and rotten fish. Worse than that, cried the BFG, roaring with laughter. To me, it's tasting of clock coaches and slime winglers. Do we really have to eat it? Sophie said. You do, unless you're wanting to become so thin, you'll be just disappearing into a thick ear. Into thin air, Sophie said. A thick ear is something quite different. Once again, that sad, winsome look came into BFG's eyes. Words, he said, is oh such a tickling problem to me all my life. So you must simply try to be patient and stop squiggling. As I am telling you before, I know exactly what words I am wanting to say, but somehow or other, they is always getting squiddled around. That happens to everyone, Sophie said. Not like it happens to me, the BFG said. I is speaking the most terrible Wiglish. I think you speak beautifully, Sophie said. You do? Cried the BFG, suddenly brightening. You really do? Simply beautifully, Sophie repeated. Well, that is the nicest present anybody's ever given me in my whole life, cried the BFG. Are you sure you're not twiddling my way? Of course not, Sophie said. I just love the way you talk. How wondercomb, cried the BFG, still beaming. How whoopsie splunkers, how absolutely squiffling. I is all of a stutter. Listen, Sophie said. You don't have to eat snozzcumbers. In the fields around our village, there are all sorts of lovely vegetables like cauliflowers and carrots. Why don't you get some of those next time you go visiting? The BFG raised his hand great head proudly in the air. I is a very honorable giant, he said. I would rather be chewing up some rotsome snozzcumbers and snitching things from other people. You stole me, Sophie said. did not steal you very much, said the BFG, smiling gently. After all, you was only a tiny little girl. So tomorrow's chapter is called The Blood Bottler, and I have absolutely no idea as to what that refers to. It sounds interesting. Oh, I almost turned the page and looked at the picture. I need to stop myself right there and close my book before I give it away. But I'll be sitting here making some predictions until we meet again tomorrow. So I will see you all at 10, and then stay on if you need support with math for our math meeting. We'll be doing a bunch of review problems together, okay? Have a great morning, and I will talk to you later. Happy Cinco de Mayo.